Hello. Yes, we are recording. Uh, I had some new thoughts here. Mm, uh, like I have been, as I say, wrestling with creating a really good foundation for like the church. So because I want to do missionary work towards my friends, my local friends, and I live in Norway, so we are quite left leaning, and yeah, so it's kind of hard to do to preach about Christ and a strongly secularized society, because you have to understand the reason why should I care about the church and Christ, and like it must have some practical significance for me, because people won't just accept like the guy in the sky story that doesn't sell anymore, or like, so you have to have like a proper reason for, like, why should be interested in like picking up this book, yeah, this book here. Why should you be interested in like doing this to this book? Like, this is what I try to get my friends to do. Just do this. Just open this book like this. But today this is almost impossible, because people, they don't understand why. What's the point of this book? People does not understand the why. So when they don't understand why they should open this book, this is the Gospels. But people doesn't understand why they should open this book. So when they don't understand the why, they don't open it. And yeah. So I'm trying to explain the why. And yeah, I think maybe I'm into something now here. Because what's the ultimate goal of the church? Well, when you look at old pictures of royalty, you always have the king in front, and then you have the priests in the back. So he has two priests and then king. And the priests are the king's council. They give advice to the king. But what do the king do? What's the king's ultimate mission? Well, the king regulates the armed forces. And the armed forces, they regulate violence. They regulate violence. So, and the priests, what do? They go into the moral text. They go into the moral texts of the society, and they decide when the king should engage in violence. So this is the ultimate goal of the church. They are the role of the church is to regulate violence in society. But today we don't have kings and violence, so we're all our own kings in a way. So the church needs to talk to everybody And the priests, they go into the moral text, and the moral text tells stories that shape the mind of people. So, because our minds, our thoughts, consists of stories, and those stories create feelings in you. So those stories, they can either create feelings of acceptance and justice, or they can create feelings of unacceptance and unjustice. And today, I think that we have an unbalance in society, which leads to like loads of problems. Because like people like Antifa, they are a symptom of something. Like, why do people go out in the streets and throw rocks and beat people up and be violent? And like the Antifa is like, they use a clever tactic because they're like, yeah, we're anti-fascist. So if you criticize us, then you're the fascist. And it works. So people are scared of critiquing Antifa. But Antifa just like, yeah, they go out in the streets and do violence. But they do so because they have a strong feeling of injustice. And they probably also have a strong feeling of not being accepted. And those two feelings should be regulated by a functioning church. Because the church is in charge with telling stories that shape the mind of the people in Antifa, so they don't feel the need to do justice, and they don't because yeah, it's about feeling accepted and about feeling justice. But the role of the church is not just to soothe the minds of these people. The role of the church is to actually create a society which has like justice and acceptance. Like, you have a level of like the society should be just and wealthy. And when the church tells the right stories to the population, the society gets wealthy and has loads of fruits, extra fruits, that everybody's needs are satisfied. So they don't feel the need to go out into the street and do violence. Yes. So but my point here is about explaining, because we have two sides of the society. We have the right side and the left side. And yeah, Norway is kind of 50-50 on who opens the book in a way, but still, I feel, for example, in the US, I feel like more people on the right that are more faithful. And yeah, and I think it's because if you just do a stereotypical view of right and left, then you have the right has a strong need for justice. That's like the main need of the right, and the left has a strong need for acceptance. So that's the main need of the left. But the reason my friends often don't want to open the book, like this book, is because they feel too judged. Because today we have the concept of an angry God, and you have to do stuff to be accepted by him. You have to say the words, I believe in Jesus Christ. Or that's the main thing thinking, that that God is angry and you have to like soothe him in a way by accepting Jesus Christ. And so it's this need for acceptance that is not being met on the left, because the left just want to be accepted. So they're not willing to listen to the stories of the church because they don't feel accepted. And this is the reason I'm talking about. I've been thinking about universalism, because universalism is an interpretation of the book that says that everybody goes to paradise. And I've been thinking about, maybe that's a good story to tell. Everybody goes to heaven or paradise. And when everybody goes to paradise, then the left will feel totally accepted. And maybe then they will open the book and be interested in the stories of the church, and this will de-escalate the need for violence, because they will like understand stuff. But because you have to like balance the two needs, because the problem I think maybe with universalism, which I feel, is that because people have inner demons, because we are humans, we have inner demons, and the reason we have these inner demons is because we live in a world with limited resources. Because René Girard, he saw that there's a mechanism inside people. We have a need to sacrifice things to like satisfy the need for justice. So we need to sacrifice things, and the need for sacrifice is like triggered by the stories we tell. So when we didn't have a Jesus that was sacrificed, René Girard saw that what the people did before then was they had to sacrifice something. So in the very beginning of humanity, we sacrificed people, because those people were they were like the cause of the bad stuff, and the need for justice triggered the need for sacrifice, and we sacrificed humans. But when after time we started to, instead of sacrificing other humans, we sacrificed animals. So all the bad stuff was like put on the lamb, and it was like thrown out in the desert. So then we had the need for justice and sacrifice fulfilled. But then Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice. He sacrificed himself. And this created a story where our inner demons, by like reading about Jesus Christ and that thinking about that all our justice needs are met in Jesus Christ, because we have in a way an angry God, so we have the concept of hell. And when people think that that bad bastard over there did something unjust to me, and maybe the justice system won't like correctly handle that case, then this person can think, okay, at least that person person is going to be dealt justice by God. God is going to give that person justice, and that soothes the feelings of doing violence, because you have the need for justice, Matt. But why do we have Antifa that goes out in the street and do violence? And I think it's because they don't have their need for justice met. But the reason they don't have their need for justice met by the stories is because they don't believe anymore in the church, which tells stories that help you soothe the need for justice. Like, the point of the stories is to help you have a better life. But if you don't feel like that justice is served, then you can become destructive. And this is the role, and I think this is why God gave us the Bible, one of the reasons was to soothe this need for justice. So when Antifa, or like the Antifa type people, they have lost their interest in the Bible and the church, so then they need to do their own justice. And the reason they're not interested in the church is because they also have a strong need to be accepted and loved for who they are. So when growing up as children, by some reason maybe they don't feel that accepted, and that creates a bad spiral that maybe puts them on the side of the society. So so Antifa need love. They need love and acceptance for who they are. And this will, when a person feels accepted and loved, they will be more, they will be less likely to do violence. But the ultimate story is about this, is the church. Because if Antifa is bootstrapped into the church, they get like tons of wisdom, because the church is also about giving out wisdom, because these old moral texts which we have in the Bible, they're like filled to the brim with loads of wisdom, like how you should act in the world to better the world and better yourself. Because moral texts are about getting close to Jesus Christ and to God, so you want to be close to the ideal, and these moral texts tell you about the ideal. And the church is about teaching people about the ideal and how to act to near the ideal. But today, the unbalance is that the left with Antifa doesn't care about the church, and the reason they don't care about the church is because they don't feel like they are being accepted total, because they have a need for total acceptance by God. They have a total need for God's love, and so they don't want to do anything to get to heaven. They just want to be accepted for who they are. They don't want to do anything to be accepted by God. They have total need for acceptance. And this total need for acceptance is explained in universalism. Yeah. But then again, you also have the need for justice. So if you just have total acceptance, because I think this is the fear many people have about universalism, is that if you're just accepted for everything, then maybe the need for justice is not fulfilled. And that creates violent societies. So the trick is, how can you balance the need for justice with the need for total acceptance? Because the level of belief is connected up. So I think if you're a strong believer in the Word, in the Bible and the moral text, I think that then you don't have the need to deal out justice to people around you. So I think that when you have this need met, you're more open for a more free and non-socialistic society. So because United States, it was founded on liberty, like true liberty, that you had a small state with less interference from the government. So it's really small government. But I think small government is connected up to the level of belief. So if you have strong belief in Jesus Christ, then you can have a small government. But when you lose this belief in Jesus Christ, then you feel the need to have justice on the earthly plane. So when you have the need for justice on the earthly plane, you go to socialism, because socialism deals out justice. Because socialism takes money from the rich and gives to the poor. And you have this strong feeling. But taking money from the rich and giving to the poor is like stealing. So it's like theft. And you don't get a stable society when you have socialism, because socialism is unstable. Because what happens when you take more out of the state than you take and you give in? And this is the problem we have now in today's society, is that our socialistic societies, like our welfare state, is unstable. There are more people taking money out from the state than giving into the state. So what happens then is that the whole society collapses. Because, and we get loads of problems, like, because since you have a socialistic state and welfare, you have to get xenophobic. Because if you have loads of people from the third world coming into your country, and the probability that they take more out of state than give in is high, or that's what people feel. So then they vote on people that would like shut down the border. But then you also get xenophobia in the society, and also you have like a central bank, because you need to have a central bank to print money to pay for the socialistic states. But when you have central bank, you get inflation and the money supply is watered out, so things cost more money, and the first people affected by inflation is the poor people, because they are on fixed income. So you get like tons of problem with socialism, because more people take stuff out from, because at one point you will get into a scenario where more people take out from the state and give in. And what you do then? Then you have like inflation and xenophobia. And so this is all connected to the level of belief. Because if you have a high level of belief, you don't need socialism, is my thinking. And if you have a high level of belief, and I think they had that, like the people that moved to the United States in the 1700s, like in this year, and this year they had high level of belief, therefore they could have loads of liberty. They could have a free state where like a small government. And so if you want to have a small government and you want to have a stable society, we need to have a high level of belief. And to have a high level of belief, we need to have a strong church. But to have a strong church, people have to understand why they should care about the church. And the reason they should care about the church, if you don't care about the church, you get socialism, which collapses the society. But in order to get people interested in society, we also have a high, like, God has to be totally accepting of people. Because if if people doesn't feel totally accepted, because some people have low self-value, then they can't deal with any demands on them. So so that's why, like, we should think about universalism. But universalism creates, maybe it ignores the need for justice. So yeah, and then we need to figure out a way to balance universalism with the need for justice. Because this story in the Church of Jesus Christ tells about sacrifice. And it was a mechanism which René found, a mechanism in humans that has a need for sacrifice. So that's why Christianity is like the best story, because all the other religions, they don't talk about a person sacrificing himself for us. And the other religion does not soothe the need for the sacrifice part in us humans. And when this sacrifice need is not met, we get violent societies, because people go out to, they need justice, and then they become violent. So I think that societies that does not have the story of Jesus Christ in them, they can become violent, or they become unbalanced, because Jesus Christ also talks about acceptance. So yeah, so maybe you become workaholic or something, I don't know. But yeah, so this is the reason for the church. And also the church is interested into humanity and into people. So you have this thing here that a fundamental mechanism is that we need to have structures, like hierarchies. And the right is often into building hierarchies, because it's like, right, it's like, we need to have business and we need work, and when you have business and work, you have you create a hierarchy in the business, because someone has to be the boss, and then you have the employees down here. But some people fall out of this hierarchy, and those are like the poor people, and the church has often like cared for the poor people. And also it's the left also critiques the system, because you're creating too many poor people here now, like your system is like you need to adjust your system, because something is wrong with your system, and then right, like, okay, I will adjust my system here. So the left critiques the system, and the system in itself, because it's a structure, is unjust, because, or in a way it can feel unjust, because like you have to, like, people are not equal. Like you have, some people are smarter than other people, and that's, some people are taller than other people and prettier than other people are. Yeah. So like the world by itself is unjust. Like, why should you be taller than me? But that's just how the world is. So you need to accept that there is injustice, but there's a limit to much injustice people can deal with. So that's why we need the church to give out wisdom, so we can, the church needs to like teach people about wisdom, so we can deal with the injustice of the world. So that's also like the main goal of the church, is to help people deal with injustice of the world. And I think that the church also like the job of the church is to teach people about love, like love your neighbor and love God. And what does that mean? So that's the role of the church, to tell people about this, so we don't get Antifa that burns down the society of natural reasons, because maybe they need a sacrifice. they have a need for justice, because the system they feel is unjust, and it's unjust because of socialism, which is unstable, because you take more out than give in, and then you have a central bank and inflation. And that is very bad for poor people, because they have fixed income, and when prices go up, because central bank pay for the state when there's more taking out, because you don't get enough in taxes, and there are loads of people dependent on the state. So then the central bank and inflation. So it's all a yep. But that's the reason for the church. We need a strong church to help the king make wise decisions. And the king is you and me now. So we want to have a small state, which they had in the 1700s, but then they had a high level of belief, because the need for justice was satisfied, so they could have a small state. Yes. Because the Cain instinct is like connected up to justice and sacrifice, because Cain is also, if somebody's too good, you become jealous, like that person over there has everything, and when you look at that person, you become jealous, and that jealousy is like the Cain thing. Screw you. So the church also to help us with the Cain instinct. Balance out the society. So the reason society is like going sideways now is because we don't have a high level of belief like thus. We lack the wisdom. Okay, thank you for listening so far. Yeah. Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, so this is just an addition to the video I just made. We have the FI here, and this FI is well, like the Bible talks about building your house on solid foundation, like on the bare rocks, like the mountain, like bare rock in the mountain. You should build your house there, because then it has solid foundation. And so this FI is the bare rock in us humans, because in the human we have a brain, and in the brain there are circuits, and in one of those circuits there is what's called the FI function, and this FI function is your need for a moral structure, because this FI builds what's called moral trees. Moral trees, and those trees are built on, and those moral trees, they regulate violence. So you have a trunk here with branches, and then you have like a leaf here, boink, a leaf. So if somebody steals a candy bar in the shop, or then you're like, man, you probably should react a little bit. But if somebody tells a white lie, then that's like this leaf here. But if somebody kicks a baby, that's like a major violation of this moral tree. Then you can get angry, and then you can get violent towards that person. So in different religious systems with different moral texts, they grow different moral trees. So this is also why it might be a bit dangerous to like mix completely different cultures with completely different moral trees, because maybe a trunk in one structure or in one society is a leaf in another society. So this is why we should be a bit careful, because if a major trunk is breached, then it will you will do violence because of this FI circuit in the brain, and that's regulating violence, I think. So the church, the biggest role, or a really big role of the church, is to teach people both these moral structures from our tree, or like the moral text, because the church needs to program, or it needs to teach this FI, like the correct moral structure, moral tree, Because if people slide and like if you like desync of this mold tree, if that's desynced, then people will start to do violence. And I think this is what's happened with Antifa, is that they have slided in their mold trees because they're not interested in the church due to not feeling accepted. So Antifa has started to slide in their mold trees. So, and I think now that if you say the wrong things, then that's like doing violence towards them. So then they have the right to do violence towards you. So if you say things that they disagree with, then they can punch you, basically. And this is because they have remapped the branches in their mold trees to make violence. So it's excuses, but they have made excuses because they feel it's an unjust system, and the unjust system is due to socialism and central banking, la la la. But it's all connected together. But the FI is a circuit in your brain, and that's, I would say, it's a true reason to be interested in the church and into the moral text, because we need to help people deal with their moral trees. We need to teach people good moral trees. If we're not teaching people good moral trees, then society slides into violence. And good morals take ages to grow, like these trees are represented into the moral text, and these moral texts are like 7,000 years old. And it has like, the church has like 2,000 years of history, and they have been like thinking about how to grow like really lovely trees. And the job so each generation's job is to go in and to water. So each generation needs to water the mold tree, because if you don't water the mold tree with water, then it gets watered by blood due to violence. So yeah, this is really important. So that's why you should open the book. And I know this is like a fear-based argument. I'm sorry about that, but I think that's just reality. That if you don't open the book and actually study the mold trees in here, like this is all lovely pictures here, and this all represents different aspect of this mold tree. Like all of these represents different aspect of this mold tree, and it creates good stories for people to regulate their violence, because that's like the root cause for the church, is to help people with their FI circuit in their brain to regulate the violence. But if not, we get Antifa and society is burned down. And I know that's fear-based argument, but I think that's just, again, reality. So I will just close this video with this book here, and yeah, I don't know, just find a. So this book here is like lovely pictures. So there are loads of history in this book. And yeah, and they all mean stuff that will help us like be better people. So here, this is about the Trinity. And the Trinity is an important but obtuse, like people doesn't understand the Trinity as well, but there's loads of like wisdom in here with the Trinity. And that's why we have loads of pictures. Look. So loads of beauty in this, yeah, in Christianity. Look here. And all of these mean stuff. And so that's by watering the moral trees to understand what all of this means, and to help people, like give meaning to people. Look, this is Van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh, and this have a meaning, deep meaning. So we'd like, I need help by all of you people. We need to water the moral tree. And we do this by studying what all of this means to help people, because morals are like complex. It's like complicated. And in a way it's not, because you should just love God and love your neighbor. But what does that mean? And so if you're going to have a stable society, we should study this stuff, I think. Yeah. So this is a work of Robert Barron. And yeah, he is, so he's a good guy. Yeah. I think this is Robert Barron, yeah. Bishop Robert Barron. Yeah, so he's made this lovely book. But okay, thank you so much for watching this. Okay, take care, bye bye.